All right, future NMLS master, settle in. You've set an incredibly ambitious goal, but it's absolutely achievable. Not just passing the SAFE exam right, but crushing it, getting that perfect score. And that's a target we absolutely love around here because it means we're going for deep, crystal clear understanding, the kind that sticks, even under pressure. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive. It's specifically designed to arm you with the precise, high-yield information. We're talking the crucial nuances, the must-memorize details that will get you to that 100 out of 100. We're going to peel back the layers on some of the most critical regulations, things governing mortgage lending, consumer protection, and we'll focus intensely on exactly what you need to recall for test day. Think of this as your personalized, accelerated study session. We're crafting it to build not just recall, but, well, true comprehension.
Indeed. And our mission, it isn't merely to summarize the regulations you'll see on the SAFE exam. It's really to help you internalize the specific thresholds, the precise timelines, those often overlooked distinctions. That's what separates a good score from a perfect one, right? We'll go through each piece of legislation, clarify its fundamental purpose, and then crucially pinpoint the exact data points, the concepts that are most frequently tested. We want you to not just know what the rule is, but really understand why it's structured that way, because that makes it stick far better in your memory, especially when the exam tries to trick you with, subtle wording.
Okay, let's unpack this. First, major regulation up, a foundational piece of consumer protection. The Fair Credit Reporting Act. You'll hear it called FCRA, or maybe its regulatory designation, Regulation V. This act is really the bedrock for how our financial reputations are built, managed, accessed. Its core purpose, laid out by Congress way back in 1970, is ensuring the accuracy, fairness, and privacy of your personal financial information, specifically the info used by what we call consumer reporting agencies, or CRAs.
Exactly. Accuracy, fairness, privacy.
In essence, it's about making sure the information that determines your eligibility for credit, insurance, maybe even a job, is correct, used properly, and kept confidential.
That emphasis on accuracy, fairness, and privacy is truly paramount because, look, inaccurate information can have devastating effects on a consumer's financial life. It really can. Now, understanding the regulatory landscape here, that's also a subtle but important detail for the exam. While the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, holds the primary sort of general enforcement authority over FCRA for most financial service providers, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, it retains significant rulemaking and enforcement power, especially over non-bank entities and certain other types of businesses that use consumer reports.
Okay.
This split, it can sometimes be a point of confusion. So just keep in mind, both agencies play a vital role, even with the CFPB being the central force for consumer protection in finance today.
Right. And for nailing that perfect score, you'll definitely need to know some absolutely crucial definitions. Often the exam will test your precise understanding of these terms. So let's start with, what exactly is a consumer report? The exam might try to trip you up, maybe presenting something that sounds like a credit report but isn't, technically. A consumer report under FCRA, it's any communication from CRA about a consumer's creditworthiness, their credit standing, character, mode of living. And it must be used for a specific permissible purpose, like determining eligibility for credit, insurance, or employment.
That permissible purpose part is key.
Exactly. So if someone pulls your credit report for a mortgage app, that's a consumer report. Employer checks your background for a job, also typically covered. But maybe a landlord just checking a reference. That probably wouldn't fall under this specific definition. It's very precise.
And then recognizing the big players in this ecosystem, the consumer reporting agencies, or CRAs. When the exam asks about CRAs, your go-to examples, the ones you absolutely need burned into your brain, are the three national credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion.
Right, the big three.
Those are the entities compiling and maintaining the vast majority of consumer credit info. Beyond that, a crystal clear understanding of adverse action is essential. This is a very specific event under FCRA. It's a denial of credit or employment, or maybe an extension of credit in a substantially smaller amount or on different, less favorable terms than requested. And it must be specifically based on information contained in a consumer report.
Ah, okay. That last part is crucial.
It is. Based on a consumer report, that's the critical qualifier. It's not just any denial. It's a denial where a consumer report played a role.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And this is prime memorization territory for your 100 on 100 goal. FCRA dictates strict time limits. How long negative information can stay on a consumer report? For bankruptcy cases, there is a strict 10-year limit. That's from the date of the order for relief or adjudication.
10 years for bankruptcy.
Right. So if a bankruptcy is older than 10 years, it generally cannot be reported by the CRAs. This longer period for bankruptcy, it sort of reflects the significant impact it has on a consumer's financial history. It's a fundamental reset of debt, essentially.
And for other types of adverse information, the rule is slightly different, but equally important to nail down. For civil lawsuits, civil judgments, arrest records, and accounts placed for collection, the limit is 7 years. That's from the date of entry or the last activity.
7 years for those.
Correct. Most other adverse information, like late payments or charge-offs, also falls under that 7-year rule. Now, this distinction is absolutely critical for your exam, and it's a common trick question point, so listen up. There is no time limit for reporting criminal conviction.
No limit at all.
No limit. While arrest records generally fall under the 7-year rule, a conviction for a crime can remain on a consumer report indefinitely. This is a crucial detail, so make sure it's locked in. Bankruptcy's 10 years, most other adverse items 7 years, but criminal convictions, no limit. The policy choice there allows for a long-term record of certain severe actions, balancing privacy with, well, public safety.
But wait, as always, there are exceptions to those time limits. You absolutely need to commit these specific financial thresholds to memory. The exam loves to test precise figures like these. The FCRA reporting time limits those 7 and 10-year rules. They don't apply if the transaction involves a principal amount of $150,000 or more for credit.
Okay, $150K for credit.
Right. So a very large mortgage, a substantial business loan, that time limit might not apply. Similarly, for life insurance, if it has a face amount of $150,000 or more, those time limits are also exempt.
Same number, $150K for life insurance too.
Yep. And finally, for employment with an annual salary of at least $75,000, the time limits also do not apply.
$75,000 for high-paying jobs.
Exactly. The logic here seems to be that for transactions involving very high stakes, or for high-earning positions, the need for comprehensive historical financial info outweighs the general time limits on reporting.
Exactly. These are the nuanced details that truly push you towards that perfect score. Moving on to the responsibilities of those involved, lenders or users in FCRA terms, they have very clear obligations. They must always have a permissible purpose to obtain a consumer report. You just can't pull someone's credit report out of curiosity or for some unapproved reason. There has to be a legitimate business need.
Makes sense.
And crucially, if they take an adverse action based on info from a consumer report, they must provide a notice to the consumer. This notice is important, and you should know its components for the exam. It needs to include the CRA's name and contact info. Also, a clear statement that the CRA didn't make the credit decision itself.
Right, they just provide the data.
Precisely. And it must state the consumer's right to obtain a free copy of their report if requested within 60 days of receiving that adverse action notice. This is all about transparency, allowing the consumer to verify the information.
Got it. 60 days for the free report request?
Yeah.
And what about the furnisher side? The banks, credit card companies, those providing info to the CRAs?
They have a significant duty as well. They can't knowingly provide inaccurate information. Simple as that. They also have an affirmative duty to correct any information they discover is incorrect and to investigate consumer disputes in a timely manner. So think of the overall flow here. Furnishers provide accurate data, CRAs compile it diligently, and users consume it responsibly. Each link in that chain has specific legally mandated responsibilities under FCRA. It's all designed to maintain the integrity of our credit reporting system.
And penalties. What happens if these rules are broken?
Well, as with any regulation this important, there are serious penalties for non-compliance. You should be aware of these. Knowingly breaking these rules carries severe consequences. Willful noncompliance can lead to actual damages suffered by the consumer or statutory damages. That's a minimum of $100 up to $1,000 per violation, plus potential punitive damages and attorney's fees.
As per violation.
Per violation. If the noncompliance is merely negligent, meaning the entity just failed to exercise due care, it typically means actual damages, costs, and attorney's fees. And for those who obtain consumer info under false pretenses, basically, lying to get someone's credit report that can lead to significant fines and even imprisonment for up to 2 years.
Okay, so these are not minor infractions.
Definitely not. Underscores the seriousness of FCRA violations.
All right, let's pivot slightly, but stay within Regulation V. Let's talk about the Fair and Accurate Credit Transactions Act, usually called FACTA. This came along in 2003. A significant amendment to FCRA. Its specific purpose was tackling the rising tide of identity theft, further improving report accuracy and giving consumers even better access to their info.
Right. So think of it as FCRA with added muscle, specifically aimed at protecting consumers from the evolving threats of fraud. It built upon the existing framework, recognizing new challenges needed new provisions.
And what's the biggest takeaway from FACTA?
The big one here, a foundational piece of consumer protection you absolutely must recall for your exam, is the requirement for each of the 3 national CRAs, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, to provide a free credit report annually upon consumer request.
Annually. Okay.
Yes, this provision, usually accessed through annualcreditreport.com, is incredibly important. It empowers consumers to proactively monitor their own financial info and detect errors or fraud early. It's a cornerstone of self-protection.
And then there are the fraud alerts. These are definite test points you mentioned.
Absolutely, and their varying durations are critical for you to memorize precisely. The exam will test these numbers. There are 3 distinct types of alerts. An initial fraud alert is for those who merely suspect fraud or believe they're at risk. It stays on file for 1 year.
1 year for initial suspicion.
Correct. It's designed to prompt lenders to take extra steps to verify identity. Then there's an extended fraud alert. This is for consumers who provide an actual identity theft report, meaning they have concrete proof of being a victim. This one lasts for a much longer period, 7 years, reflecting the more severe impact of confirmed identity theft.
Okay, 7 years for confirmed victims with a report.
Right. Finally, an active duty alert for military members on active duty. This one's on file for at least 12 months. Crucial for protecting service members who might be deployed and less able to monitor their accounts.
At least 12 months for active duty.
Got it. So remember those durations. 1 year, 7 years, at least 12 months for active duty. Nail those specific durations cold.
And FACTA also addressed getting rid of documents.
Yes, another crucial provision under FACTA is the disposal rule. This isn't a suggestion, it's a firm requirement. It mandates that anyone using consumer reports, financial institutions, real estate agencies, employers, whoever, must take reasonable measures to dispose of the information securely. Prevent unauthorized access.
So not just tossing it in the bin.
Definitely not. Think secure disposal methods. Burning, pulverizing, or shredding paper documents, or destroying electronic files so they can't be reconstructed. The why here is simple. Information you don't need anymore can still be a goldmine for identity thieves if not properly safeguarded. Responsible disposal is just as critical as secure storage.
Okay. And FACTA also brought in the red flags rule.
That's right. A cornerstone of identity theft prevention efforts stemming from FACTA is the red flags rule. This is a major component. It mandates that financial institutions and creditors must establish a written identity theft prevention program. Not optional, it's a strict requirement, designed to make institutions proactive.
Proactive in protecting data.
Well, here's a crucial distinction, and the exam might test you on this nuance. We'll soon discuss the GLBA safeguards rule, which focuses on securing information. In contrast, the red flags rule specifically focuses on methods of detecting a security breach or patterns indicative of identity theft.
Detection versus security.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and identifying suspicious activity before it escalates into full-blown fraud. These programs must be designed to identify, detect, respond to, and periodically update their list of red flags. Examples could be warnings from CRAs, suspicious documents that look tampered with, weird personal identifying information, or unusual account activity like a sudden flurry of new credit applications or changes in address. This rule is all about active vigilance, building a system to spot those warning signs.
Okay, let's move on to the behemoth, as many call it, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, passed in 2010. This was a direct, sweeping response to the 2008 financial crisis, right? Which exposed just fundamental weaknesses, systemic risks across the whole financial system.
Absolutely.
Its overarching aim was what? Overhauling financial regulation, protecting consumers, and crucially, preventing another catastrophic collapse like that. It's sprawling, designed for a more resilient, accountable system.
It is indeed massive, perhaps the most significant overhaul of financial regulations since the Great Depression. For your exam, look, you absolutely don't need to know every single provision. That would be impossible. But you must focus specifically on the key titles that directly impact the mortgage industry and consumer financial protection. Zero in on what's relevant for MLOs. Those are the areas you'll be tested on.
And the single biggest outcome for us, for mortgage professionals from Dodd-Frank, is probably Title X, the Consumer Financial Protection Act.
That's huge, yes.
Because Title X didn't just tweak existing regs, it created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, as an independent agency.
A game changer.
The CFPB is now the central regulatory and enforcement authority for pretty much all federal consumer financial laws. If you immediately jump to Dodd-Frank Title X, it represents that profound shift towards a single, powerful consumer watchdog designed to prevent predatory practices, ensure fair treatment.
And for MLOs, perhaps the most directly relevant title within Dodd-Frank is Title 14th, the Mortgage Reform and Anti-Predatory Lending Act. This title, it's actually divided into several critical subtitles, each addressing a specific aspect of mortgage lending practices that contributed to the crisis. Subtitle A, for instance, was a big one. It prohibited compensation incentives for MLOs that could steer consumers into particular loans. And it placed strict limits on MLO compensation itself.
Yeah, it's a steering issue.
Exactly. The why behind this is clear. Protect consumers from being pushed into loans that weren't in their best interest, just because an MLO might earn a higher commission on that specific product. It shifted the focus from volume or product type to the consumer's ability to repay.
And then there's Subtitle B. That brought in the ability to repay, or ATR, rule in the qualified mortgage, or QM, standards. These are now fundamental to responsible lending, right? Introduced to ensure lenders thoroughly assess a borrower's capacity to repay and that certain loans meet a safe harbor standard, minimizing risk for everyone.
Precisely. And within that, for your perfect score, you need to commit the qualified mortgage QM rule specifics to memory. These are tested frequently. A qualified mortgage comes with strict rules, designed to ensure a loan is truly safe and responsible. First, it generally cannot have a term over 30 years.
Max 30 years.
Right, loans pushing past 30 years were sometimes used to mask unaffordability, so this caps the long-term obligation. Second, it absolutely cannot have negative amortization, meaning your loan balance must not increase over time due to unpaid interest.
Oh, neg-am. Got it.
That was a particularly insidious feature of some pre-crisis loans, where borrowers could make payments but still owe more each month. Third, and critically, its points and fees cannot exceed 3% of the loan amount.
Points and fees cap, 3%.
Correct. This cap prevents excessive upfront costs that could drain a borrower's equity or make the loan unaffordable from the start. These three prohibitions are frequently tested on the QM rule, so make sure you have them locked in. No more than 30 years, no negative amortization, and points and fees under 3%. Each limit directly targets practices that historically proved detrimental.
Okay, Title 40 also included other things.
Yes. Subtitle C expanded the protections of HEA, the Home Ownership and Equity Protection Act, to cover more loan types. It also lowered the triggers for what counts as a high-cost loan, even mandating pre-loan counseling for them, casting a wider net against predatory lending.
Wider net, okay.
Subtitle E implemented crucial new rules for mortgage servicers. Things like clear monthly statements, prompt payment application, robust error resolution processes, addressing common consumer complaints from the crisis.
Servicing rules, right.
And then Subtitle F reinforced appraiser independence, which actually leads us perfectly into our next deep dive topic. The integrity of the appraisal is foundational.
Perfect transition. Protecting appraiser independence. This rule is critical because it ensures an appraiser's value conclusion is truly objective, free from coercion, undue influence. And you said it originates directly from Dodd-Frank's Title 14, specifically Subtitle F.
That's correct, underscoring its importance in the post-crisis regulatory world. The core idea is simple. Creditors and their employees cannot illegally influence appraisers to misstate property values or hit some predetermined target. Because an inflated or deflated appraisal, it can harm everyone involved in a transaction.
So you absolutely need to know the clear line here. What's prohibited versus what's acceptable. This is another area where the exam often tests your precise understanding presenting scenarios. So prohibited practices mean any action that attempts to improperly sway the appraiser's objective judgment. This includes encouraging an appraiser to misstate a property's value.
Definitely not allowed.
Implying that the appraiser's continued retention or future business depends on them hitting a certain value.
Big no-no.
Or conditioning the appraiser's compensation on whether the loan actually closes. Like a loan officer saying, if this doesn't come in at X value, we can't use you again.
Classic example of prohibited influence. These are all illegal attempts to compromise the appraisal's integrity.
But there are acceptable practices. Things that are okay.
Yes, absolutely. There are acceptable practices that are perfectly legal and, in fact, often helpful in ensuring an accurate appraisal. It is perfectly okay to ask an appraiser to consider additional information about the subject property or maybe comparable sales they might have overlooked.
Okay, providing more info is fine.
Yes. You can also request more detail or explanation for their value conclusion, especially if something seems unclear or inconsistent. And importantly, you can request the correction of factual errors on the valuation report, like if they listed the wrong number of bedrooms or bathrooms.
Correcting errors makes sense.
You can even obtain multiple appraisals as long as you follow a documented policy of selecting the most reliable one, not just picking the highest value. And yes, you can absolutely withhold compensation for a breach of contract or substandard performance of their duties if they didn't do the job right.
Okay, so there's a clear distinction.
There is. The exam often tests your ability to differentiate between these prohibited and acceptable actions. Clarity here is key to avoiding missteps and showing you know the rules.
Okay, our next major area for your perfect score quest.
Yeah.
The interconnected web of the USA Patriot Act, the Bank Secrecy Act, BSA, and the broader anti-money laundering AML regulations. This is a critical domain, focused on national security within the financial realm. The USA Patriot Act, specifically Title III, dramatically amended the long-standing Bank Secrecy Act, BSA, after 9/11.
Right, a direct response.
Its purpose was to beef up efforts against money laundering and terrorist financing, recognizing that illicit funds are, the lifeblood of criminal enterprises and terrorism.
And the primary enforcer here, the agency you absolutely need to remember, is FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It's a powerful bureau within the Department of the Treasury. It's the key agency responsible for safeguarding the financial system from illicit use, investigating financial crimes, and ensuring compliance with these anti-money laundering regulations. They're tracking suspicious financial flows.
And who does this apply to? Just banks?
No, it's important to note these requirements apply broadly to what the acts define as financial institutions, which, critically for your exam, specifically include residential mortgage lenders and originators, RMLOs.
Okay, so RMLOs are definitely covered.
Absolutely. The obligations are placed squarely on the company or the institution itself. The mortgage lender or brokerage must have these programs in place. While individuals like MLOs are certainly tasked with carrying out these requirements as part of their job, the ultimate responsibility for compliance rests with the organization. It underscores that mortgage lending is a key sector in preventing illicit financial activity.
Okay, so what are the key requirements we need to know cold for the exam?
All right, first, RMLOs must have a written anti-money laundering AML program. It needs to be approved by senior management. This isn't a suggestion. It's a fundamental compliance pillar. A robust AML program must include specific components: strong internal controls designed to prevent money laundering, a designated compliance officer responsible for overseeing the program, ongoing employee training to keep staff informed of responsibilities and red flags, and independent testing to ensure the program is effective and up to date. This comprehensive approach creates multiple layers of defense.
And part of that AML program is the CIP.
Yes, a vital part of that overarching AML program is the Customer Identification Program, or CIP. The purpose of the CIP is to verify customer identity before opening an account or engaging in a significant financial transaction. This means collecting specific identifying info from the customer: full name, date of birth, current address, a unique ID number like a social security number or taxpayer ID.
Standard stuff, mostly.
Yes, and this information is then verified with reliable documents, driver's license, passport, other government-issued ID. The why is simple. If you don't know who your customer is, you can't prevent them from using your institution for illicit purposes.
Makes sense. Any timelines here?
Crucially, and this is a definitive test point for your exam, CIP records must be retained for 5 years after the account is closed.
5 years after the account is closed. Got it.
That 5-year retention period for CIP records is a frequently tested detail. Commit it to memory. Additionally, once identity is verified, it must be compared against lists of known or suspected terrorists and other prohibited persons maintained by government agencies. A dual check for compliance and security.
Okay, what about SARS? Suspicious Activity Report.
This is a big one for the exam, yes. Suspicious Activity Reports, or SARs. RMLOs must file a SAR with FinCEN for any suspicious transaction or attempted transaction of $5,000 or more.
$5,000 is the threshold.
Correct. And what makes a transaction suspicious? Well, it could be funds that appear to come from illegal activity, or an attempt by the customer to evade Bank Secrecy Act requirements, or just a transaction that simply has no apparent lawful purpose, raising a red flag. The key is that dollar threshold and the suspicious nature. It's about reporting what doesn't look right.
Are there deadlines for filing SARs?
Yes, and you must memorize these SAR specifics for your exam. They must be filed within 30 days of detection of the suspicious activity. The clock starts ticking the moment the institution becomes aware.
30 days from detection.
And, just like CIP records, SARs and their supporting documentation must be retained for 5 years from the filing date.
5 years again for retention.
Exactly. Both the $5,000 threshold and the 30-day filing deadline are prime exam material. Make sure you've got those down. These tight deadlines ensure law enforcement gets timely intelligence.
Okay, now CTR's currency transaction reports. You mentioned something tricky here.
Yes, here's a point of clarification that often confuses test takers, so pay close attention. Currency transaction reporting, or CTRs. RMLOs are not directly required to file CTRs themselves for transactions exceeding $10,000 in cash.
Okay, RMLOs don't file CTRs directly.
Correct. CTRs are primarily filed by banks and other institutions directly handling large cash transactions. However, FinCEN does receive crucial cash transaction information relevant to mortgage transactions via IRS Form 8300. This form is filed by settlement service providers like title companies or closing attorneys, not the RMLO themselves, for cash payments exceeding $10,000 made in a single transaction or related transactions.
So the info gets to FinCEN just through a different channel.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So while RMLOs don't initiate the CTR, they're still part of the larger cash reporting ecosystem monitoring large cash movements. It shows the interconnectedness of these efforts.
And what's prohibited under Patriot Act and BSA?
Finally, there are clear prohibited practices. It's strictly prohibited to open an account without verifying the customer's identity. That's the core of CIP. And it's absolutely forbidden to tip off a suspect that a SAR has been filed about their activities.
No tipping off.
Absolutely not. This tipping off prohibition is designed to protect ongoing investigations, ensure criminals aren't alerted they're under scrutiny, allows law enforcement to proceed unimpeded. It's a very serious offense.
Okay, let's move on to GLBA. The Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, Regulation P. Passed in '99, this is all about financial privacy, right? Ensuring financial institutions protect the confidentiality and security of consumers' non-public personal information, or NPI.
Exactly. In the digital age, with so much personal data being shared, this act is key for building and maintaining trust in the financial system.
What are the key definitions we need to nail for GLBA?
For your exam, you need to understand the nuances of two key definitions. The distinction is often tested. First, non-public personal information, or NPI. This is personally identifiable financial information provided by a consumer, gathered from a transaction, or otherwise obtained by the institution. Includes the obvious: names, addresses, social security numbers, account numbers, credit history. But, crucially, it does not include publicly available information, like government real estate records or public mortgage filing.
Okay, so public records aren't NPI.
Generally, no. If a document is accessible to anyone in a public record, it's not NPI under GLBA. This distinction is often tested. No, it's not NPI, because that's what the rule doesn't protect.
And the second key distinction?
This is subtle but incredibly important for GLBA, and it impacts who gets what notice, the difference between a consumer and a customer.
Consumer versus customer.
Okay. A consumer is an individual with an isolated financial transaction. Maybe they just applied for a loan but didn't close, got a quote, or cashed a check. They have no established ongoing relationship, just interacting for a single, non-continuing purpose.
A one-off interaction.
Right. A customer, however, has an established, continuing relationship with the financial institution. Like someone who actually gets a mortgage loan, has an ongoing account, or has their loans serviced by that institution.
An ongoing relationship.
Exactly. Because of this ongoing relationship and the deeper level of information shared, customers receive greater protection under GLBA. This difference is absolutely key for understanding the privacy notice requirements. It dictates who gets what notice and when.
Okay, that brings us to the privacy notices and opt-out rights. When is each required?
You need to know this, as the exam will likely test it. The initial privacy notice must be provided to a customer at the time the relationship is established.
To customers when the relationship starts.
Right. Makes sense. They're entering an ongoing financial relationship, need the privacy policies up front. Think of it as the welcome packet for their privacy rights.
And for consumers.
But for a consumer, it's only required if the institution intends to share their NPI with non-affiliated third parties.
Only if sharing with third parties.
Correct. This is a common point of confusion. So remember, initial notice to customers upon establishing the relationship, always. To consumers, only if you're actually sharing their NPI with outside parties. The distinction matters because a consumer has a less permanent connection.
What about the annual privacy notice?
The annual privacy notice is simpler, thankfully. It must be sent to all customers every year.
Every year for all customers.
Yep. No exceptions for customers, reflecting that ongoing relationship. Both the initial and annual notices must clearly describe the institution's NPI sharing policies, the categories of NPI collected and disclosed, and most importantly, explain the right to opt out of information sharing with non-affiliated third parties. Institutions must give a reasonable time to opt out, typically 30 days, allows consumers control over their data.
30 days to opt out.
And if a customer requests a paper copy of the annual notice by phone, the institution has 10 days to mail it.
10 days to mail if requested by phone.
Okay. Now, beyond just notices, GLBA also mandates the safeguards rule. This requires financial institutions to create, implement, and maintain a comprehensive written information security program. Think of it as the how-to guide for protecting NPI. It's the operational side of privacy.
The operational part.
Exactly. This program needs a designated employee to oversee it, a process to identify foreseeable risks to customer info, the design and testing of safeguards to address those risks, and requirements for service providers who handle NPI on the institution's behalf to also protect that information. And remember that crucial contrast we discussed earlier. Safeguards rule is about securing NPI from unauthorized access. Red flags rule, under FACTA, is about detecting identity theft attempts, both crucial but distinct functions.
Securing versus detecting. Got it. All right, let's transition to the Mortgage Acts and Practices Rule, or MAP rule. Regulation N. This one's all about truthfulness in mortgage advertising, right?
Exactly. Its purpose is to prohibit material misrepresentations in any commercial communication regarding mortgage products, making sure what you advertise is accurate, clear, not misleading, preventing consumers from being lured by deceptive claims.
Who enforces this?
The CFPB is the primary enforcer, though they share some authority with the FTC, especially for non-bank entities. The MAP rule applies broadly. Non-depository mortgage lenders, brokers, servicers, even real estate agents who advertise mortgages. Critically, it covers anything considered a commercial communication, which is a very broad definition. Print ads, TV, radio, MLO scripts, websites, social media, banner ads. If it's promoting a mortgage product, it's covered.
Okay, so what kind of misrepresentations are prohibited? Examples.
Here's where the rubber meets the road, and these are key examples to memorize for the exam. You'll often see scenarios testing these violations. The MAP rule explicitly prohibits misleading claims, whether explicit statements or just implied. This includes misstating interest rates, or APR, or deceptively using the word fixed if the rate or payment is actually variable. That's a classic violation. Advertising a fixed low payment if it adjusts later.
The fixed bait and switch.
Precisely. Also strictly prohibited are misrepresentations about fees and costs. False claims about loan terms, like saying a loan is fully amortizing when it's not, or advertising no payments for a reverse mortgage without clarifying that property taxes, insurance, home maintenance are still due.
Important clarification for reverse mortgages.
Absolutely. And crucially, it's illegal to deceptively imply government affiliation through logos, names, or language when none actually exists. Using seals or phrases making it seem like you're part of a government program when you're not. Major violation. False pre-approval claims are also forbidden, telling a borrower they're pre-approved without proper underwriting.
So be very careful with advertising language.
Extremely careful. These specific examples are key to understanding the rule and spotting violations on the exam. The rule's intent is a level playing field of accurate info for consumers.
Is there a record-keeping requirement for MAP?
Yes. For compliance, entities subject to the MAP rule must keep copies of all relevant commercial communications for a period of 24 months from the date they were last disseminated.
24 months retention again.
Okay. That 24-month retention period is a critical detail for the exam, so highlight that. Ensures regulators can review past ads and verify compliance. Provides an audit trail.
Next up, the e-Sign Act, Electronic Signatures in Global and National Commerce Act.
Yes. The e-Sign Act, passed in 2000, relatively straightforward in its core purpose. It grants electronic signatures and electronic records the same legal validity and enforceability as their traditional paper counterparts in interstate commerce.
Okay, makes e-docs legally binding.
Essentially, yes. It was absolutely essential for modernizing financial transactions, allowed for seamless digital processes without sacrificing legal certainty, paved the way for paperless loan apps and disclosures.
What's the absolute most important thing to remember about e-Sign?
The most important takeaway, an absolute requirement you must know for your exam: electronic records can only be used if the consumer affirmatively consents to their use.
Consent is key.
It's not automatic. You cannot just switch to sending documents electronically without their explicit verifiable permission. Protects consumer choice, ensures they aren't forced into a digital format they can't access or don't prefer.
What needs to happen before they consent?
Good question. Before a consumer gives that crucial consent, the financial institution must provide a clear and conspicuous statement informing them of several key things. They need to know their right to receive the record in paper form and any fees for paper copies, their right to withdraw consent at any time, and the procedures for doing so because circumstances change. The scope of the consent. Is it just for this one transaction or for the ongoing relationship, all future documents? And critically, the specific hardware and software requirements needed to access and retain the electronic records.
Got to make sure they can actually open the files.
Exactly. Ensures true informed consent. Prevents situations where a consumer agrees to e-docs but then lacks the tech to view them. The process itself must also reasonably demonstrate that the consumer can actually access the information in the electronic format that will be used, maybe through a test document.
And record retention with e-sign.
If a law requires a record to be retained, the e-sign Act specifies it can be kept electronically, provided it's accurate, remains accessible for the entire required period, and can be accurately reproduced later. It simplifies compliance, allows digital storage while maintaining legal necessity.
Okay, simplifies things. Let's move to phone calls. Do not call provisions.
Right, the DNC provisions. The DNC registry allows consumers to stop unwanted sales calls for their registered phone numbers. The Federal Trade Commission, FTC, primarily oversees the national DNC registry. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC, handles DNC rules for calls to wireless numbers and for certain types of calls, like robocalls. And the CFPB also has a role in enforcement for consumer financial products. They work together.
What do telemarketers need to know for the exam? The requirements.
Definitely need to know these. This is frequently tested. First, telemarketers must access the DNC registry at least every 31 days to update their call lists.
Every 31 days. Mark that down.
That 31-day check is a definite test question. Insurance companies are regularly scrubbing their lists against the most current registry.
What about calling times?
Secondly, calling times are strictly restricted, between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m., based on the consumer's local time.
8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Consumers' time.
Correct. Common sense rule, but easy to forget. So remember those hours. And just like with the MAP rule, records of telemarketing activities, scripts, call records, internal DNC lists must be kept for 24 months.
24 months retention again. Seems common.
It is important for compliance auditing.
Are there other prohibited practices besides calling registered numbers?
Yes. The DNC rules also outline prohibited abusive telemarketing practices. It's illegal to use threats, intimidation, or profanity, forbidden to make false or misleading statements to induce a sale, or fail to transmit a valid caller ID number. These protect consumers from deceptive or harassing calls, even if they aren't on the registry.
Okay, but there are exceptions to DNC. When can you call?
Now, this is where it gets nuanced and is absolutely crucial for the exam. The exceptions. A company can call a consumer even if they're on the national DNC list if there's an established business relationship, or EBR.
EBR, established business relationship.
Right. The idea is if a consumer has previously interacted with the business, a call might not be unwanted. This relationship exists for two specific durations you must memorize: 18 months after a consumer's last purchase or financial transaction with the company.
18 months after transaction.
Or, and this is the other critical duration, the EBR also exists for 3 months after a consumer makes an inquiry about your products or services.
18 months after an inquiry.
These specific durations, 18 months after a transaction, 3 months after an inquiry, are absolutely critical for your exam. Commit those to memory.
Any other exceptions?
Yes. Prior written consent from the consumer explicitly allows calls, regardless of DNC status. And it's also worth noting, calls from political organizations, certain nonprofit charities, and surveys, if they aren't selling anything, are generally exempt from DNC rules.
Okay, good to know. And penalties for DNC violations.
They are steep, highlights the seriousness. Companies can face fines of up to $53,088 per violation.
Wow, over $50,000.
Per violation. And what's truly important here, each illegal call counts as a separate violation. So if a telemarketer makes multiple calls to one registered number or calls many registered numbers, the fines can escalate into the millions really quickly. Underscores the financial risk of noncompliance.
Okay, final deep dive. The Fair Housing Act.
Yes, a landmark piece of legislation, passed as part of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. It prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of dwellings based on specific protected class status. About ensuring equal access to housing opportunities for everyone, housing is fundamental.
And who oversees this?
The Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. They're the primary agency overseeing and enforcing this act. They investigate complaints, work to ensure compliance.
Okay, the protected classes, you said this is a must-memorize list.
Absolutely, unequivocally.
Okay.
A must-memorize list for your exam. You need to know all 7 of these inside and out. Discrimination based on any is illegal. It's illegal to discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, often called handicap, and familial status.
Race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, familial status.
Got it. And familial status specifically means the presence of children under 18 living with a parent or legal guardian. Also includes pregnant women and those securing custody of children. Know all 7 precisely.
And how does this apply specifically to lending?
Based on any of those protected classes, it's explicitly illegal in lending to refuse a mortgage loan or to impose different terms or conditions like a higher interest rate, more points or fees, requiring a larger down payment just because of someone's protected class. It's also illegal to discriminate when appraising property, undervaluing a home based on neighborhood demographics, for example.
Discrimination can take many forms.
Both overt and subtle. Understanding these prohibitions is key to ensuring fair and equal access to credit for housing.
Okay, and finally, within fair housing, there are specific discriminatory practices we need to know.
Yes, these are specific practices you need to understand and differentiate. They are frequently tested, and knowing the nuances gives you that perfect score edge. First, redlining. This is refusing to provide loans, insurance, or other services to entire neighborhoods, often based predominantly on their racial or ethnic composition, not objective lending criteria.
Drawing invisible lines on a map.
Exactly. Denies opportunities, perpetuates segregation.
Okay, what's next?
Then there's reverse redlining. This is the insidious opposite. Predatory lenders specifically targeting residents of these same historically redlined or underserved neighborhoods with risky, expensive loan products.
So instead of excluding, they exploit.
Precisely. Pushing high-cost, unsustainable mortgages, stripping equity, exploitation, preying on vulnerable populations with limited access to traditional credit.
Third,
Steering. This is guiding or directing potential homebuyers toward or away from certain neighborhoods or properties based on their protected class, like subtly encouraging a family with kids only towards neighborhoods with top schools, while discouraging them from areas popular with retirees.
Yeah.
That could be steering based on familial status, or only showing certain areas based on race,
limits choices, perpetuates segregation.
even if unintentional. And finally, blockbusting. This is a for-profit inducement of property owners to sell by making representations about the prospective entry of persons of a particular protected group into the neighborhood.
Creating panic selling.
Exactly, often based on racial fears, driving down property values, allowing speculators to buy low, resell high, creates instability, exploits community anxieties. Knowing these 4 distinct practices, redlining, reverse redlining, steering, blockbusting, will serve you well.
Right, we've walked through the key regulations, hitting all those critical details for your perfect score. Now, to truly help you nail that 100-100, let's consolidate all those critical timelines and retention periods we've covered. This is the ultimate quick-hit list for memorization. Precision is paramount here.
Think of this as your rapid-fire review. These numbers and durations are frequently tested directly, often as multiple-choice options. Let's get them cemented in your mind. Ready?
Let's do it.
1 year. Duration for an initial fraud alert under FACTA.
1 year initial fraud alert.
12 months, at least. Minimum duration for an active duty alert under FACTA.
Minimum 12 months active duty alert.
18 months. EBR for DNC after a consumer's last purchase or financial transaction.
18-month EBR post-transaction.
24 months, 2 years. Common retention period. DNC telemarketing records, MAP rule commercial communications.
44 months DNC records and MAP ads.
3 months. EBR for DNC after a consumer inquiry.
3 months EBR post-inquiry.
3 years. Record retention for ATR and QM rule compliance under Dodd-Frank.
3 years ATR QM records.
5 years. Another common one. CIP identity verification records after account closed. SARS and supporting docs from filing date.
5 years CIP post-close and SARS from filing.
7 years. Extended fraud alert duration. Also, the limit for most adverse info on consumer reports, lawsuits, judgments, collections, etc.
7 years, extended fraud alert and most negative items.
10 years. Limit for bankruptcy cases on consumer reports.
Yeah.
Remember that distinction. 7 for most, 10 for bankruptcy.
10 years, bankruptcy, got it.
10 days. Deadline to mail a paper copy of annual privacy notice if requested by phone, GLBA.
10 days, mail GLBA notice if requested by phone.
30 days. Very busy number. Deadline for investigating disputes, FCRA, both furnishers and CRAs. Deadline for MLOs to respond to ID theft victim requests. SAR filing deadline. GLBA opt-out period. Company puts number on entity-specific DNC list.
30 days for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Dispute investigations, ID theft response, SAR filing, GLBA opt-out, entity DNC.
31 days. Businesses must access the DNC registry at least this often. A common exam question.
31 days, check DNC registry.
60 days. Consumer denied credit has this long to request a free report, FCRA. Final response to CFPB complaint typically due.
60 days, request free report after denial and CFPB final response.
210 days. QM rule cure provision for older loans to refund excess points fees.
210 days, QM cure provision refund.
Okay, that's the rapid fire list. Burn those into your memory.
Wow. You've just absorbed a tremendous amount of precise, essential information. We really drilled down into the details, the why behind them. That's a deep dive in action. We've pinpointed the crucial specifics you need to ace that safe exam. Don't underestimate the power of knowing these specific numbers, definitions, distinctions cold. They are your path to that perfect score.
Absolutely. The key to that perfect score now is consistent review. Particularly those numerical limits, the precise definitions, those key timelines we just ran through. Go back through your notes, quiz yourself relentlessly, truly internalize not just the what, but why these rules exist and what they aim to prevent. Understanding the underlying purpose makes the specifics much easier to recall and apply under pressure on test day.
Definitely. So, as you prepare to demonstrate your expertise and crush the SAFE exam, consider this. How does the careful crafting, the interconnectedness of all these regulations we discussed, from protecting privacy with GLBA to preventing financial crime with the Patriot Act, ensuring fair housing access, how does it all ultimately bolster the integrity of the housing market itself?
Good question.
It benefits not just individual consumers, right? But it creates a more stable, trustworthy, resilient financial ecosystem for everyone involved. Keep that bigger picture in mind as you go out there and nail every single detail.